Yeah. Family, y'all. Just keep it tight, keep it tight, keep it tight. Oh, right. Yeah. Here we go.
In many ways, social contract ethics then are a common sense morality. Hobbes said that the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, that summarizes social contract ethics. Let's all treat one another as we would want them to treat us. But think about it, the golden rule, that's all about loving other people? No, that's all about me. It's egoistic. Meaning, the reason that I do those things to other people is why? So that they do it to me. I won't lie to you so that you won't lie to me. Really, why don't I lie then? Because I don't want you lying to me. So for the modern philosophers then, helping others isn't born of altruism, but of enlightened egoism. We're all interested in our own interests. This is a challenge. We're going to see some challenges with this too. With all of these philosophical systems, we see the good things in it, but we also see the weaknesses, right? Deacon Roy spent time today taking communion to the sick. Why did he do that? Did he do that because he was self-centered and egoistic? I think that challenges these sorts of things. Think the last time you did something good for someone else? Was it necessarily because you were hoping to get something back from that person? It doesn't always work like that. It doesn't always work. In social contract ethics, we consider the consequences of our actions so that, for instance, an example would be, I need money tonight. I'm out of cash. I got an idea. Why don't I run down and rob the convenience store? What keeps me from robbing the convenience store for the money that I need? Because I know that the consequences could be far worse. I could be in a worse situation after robbing that convenience store than I am right now without the money that I'd like in my pocket.
If you're caught.
If I'm caught. Let's come back to that in a moment. Because what happens is, so we have a social contract that works, but what happens if a person can do something and never be caught? That throws a kink into it.
That goes to conscience.
Do I want to live in a society where people don't get caught for stealing? No. Because if people didn't get caught for stealing, then anyone could steal my marker and get away with it. So I don't want to live in a society like that. We have to have rules and laws that protect us all. So we want to live in a society with rules. But it's this social contract theory that explains why it is that we need rules and why it is that we should follow them. Because it's better for us to follow those rules than for us not to follow those rules and to live in a state of war, the state of nature. So why tell the truth, for instance? Because that's the best thing for you. It's all about me, right? The egoistic ethics, it's all about me. Why don't I lie? Because it's all about me. Because my lies will eventually catch up with me. I'll try to cover up my lies. I'll begin believing my own lies. I'll be in a worse situation because of my lies. So the reason I don't lie, love y'all, but the reason I don't lie is because of me, according to modern philosophers. Social contract ethics are a form of ethical universalism. Even though the contracts will vary between societies, each society will have its own rules. Every country, every city has its own rules or ordinances. What happens is that it's universal. Throughout the world, every society has its rules. Should we blindly follow those rules? Some are not just. So if there are some rules that are not just, then we don't need to follow them. It's all about the contract. Can we live with whatever contract we have as a nation? And as part of the contract, everyone needs to get something in return. So think about it, for instance, in the Jim Crow days. No, let's use the example of Mexican Americans in Austin. There was a time when our parents and grandparents, some of you may remember this, they were not served, they were not allowed to go into restaurants, they were served out of side windows. And you know what? They went to those side windows rather than going in the restaurants. Why did they do that? Interesting. So the social contract at that time was that it was okay for them to order out of the side window, but if they went in the restaurant, there would be consequences. That was the social contract. And so what did they do? They went to the side window and ordered there, in order to avoid the problems. Okay? So then what happens then eventually is that someone steps up and says, you know what, this is not just. If that person can go into that restaurant, I can go into that restaurant too. If that person can sit in that bus seat, then I can sit in that bus seat too. If someone can go into that restroom, I can go into that restroom too. And so they challenge that social contract that we had. So essentially justice is the key in all of this. Can someone be excluded from any parts of this, from a restroom or from a restaurant or from a bus seat? Because that becomes a challenge for us. Would I want to be excluded from that myself? No. So is that a just agreement if we start excluding people? If we start excluding women from ordination? Yikes, that's part of the social contract. Is that just? African Americans agreed to follow Jim Crow laws only as long as they believed in the security or the benefits of the arrangements, not getting lynched. That was a pretty good benefit by following that. But then once others started to rise up, we started to ask ourselves, wait a minute, we don't have to live with this. We don't have to live as second-class citizens. This is not a just agreement. And so the question arose, why give up unlimited freedom of the state of nature? Because in the state of nature, we can kill one another and do whatever we want. We can rob, we can do whatever we want. Why should we give that up to live with an unjust contract? So for many, rather than this oppressive environment, better for us to stand up and demand our rights. Rules allow us to have a reasonably organized and stable society where people can exercise as much freedom as possible without bringing down the entire framework. So essentially, by having rules, it allows us, we give up some freedoms, but it allows us to get certain things in return. Criticisms of social contract theory. If we were all self-interested, going back to Cynthia's question, won't we all be thinking about how it is that we can cheat or rob or steal when no one's looking, when we know we can't get caught? What does that do to social contract ethics? It's one thing to be punished for something, but what if no one will ever find out? Questions for, another question is, what do we do with the free riders? Free riders are those who wish to benefit from the rules, but who will violate the rules if they can get away with them, right? What do you do with those people? So various questions for reflection before we take a break. Natural law ethics seem to require a strict sexual ethic, going back to this procreation right here, that was natural law. How do sexual ethics based on a social contract differ? Ooh, if we had more time, that would be a fascinating thing to explore. When we're no longer focused on this, thou shalt not have sex, it's not meant for procreation. How does it change when we go from this to social contract, various agreements, right? Imagine you're having a teenager now who's coming of that age where he or she's going to be thinking about things like sex, right? Better to have a talk with him or her. What talk are you going to have? It's going to be the natural law talk about how it is that all sex happens within marriage and outside of marriage there is no sex. And how using a condom is evil. Is that going to be your talk with your teenager? Or is it going to be a social contract ethics where you start talking about the agreements in various relationships? Wait a minute. What happens if someone gets pregnant? Is there some social contract that's implied in that? How many principles of social contract theory can you find in Prohibition and its repeal? Are we all familiar with Prohibition? 1919, what happened? As a nation, we outlawed the manufacture, sale, and distribution of alcohol. Why was that? It had to do with social contract theory, social contract ethics. We're doing this for the good of everyone. But then what happens to the free riders who say, oh yeah, good rule, but I'm going to continue to do it? How do notions of contract and equality, freedom, justice, reasonable rules fit with the scenario of women who wear sneakers to work and then change into their high heels? Think about that for a moment. There are various social contracts. Do we really want to wear heels around all day? Wouldn't we be more comfortable in sneakers? There's a certain social contract in our work environment that leads us to dress a certain way. And how interesting that when we're not in those contexts that we're wearing sneakers. What is social contract theory's response to issues like school shootings and open carry? This is a serious issue. I understand that open carry passed the Senate here in the state of Texas, meaning that people can now, if it passes the House and is signed by the governor, people could openly carry guns in Texas. You could come to class next week with a gun. If it's passed.
The governor's going to sign it passes.
Well, so let's think about what this means for social contract theory. Because for social contract theory then, is there a response? Should we have, according to social contract theory, should we have stricter handgun laws or more lenient handgun laws in light of school shootings? What a contradiction. On the one hand, we have school shootings. On the other hand, we're allowing people to openly carry guns. What does all this mean for social contract theory if we had more time to think about it? Blood donations, okay. In order to save people's lives, we need people to give blood. But isn't it true that there are free riders too? But if we took a survey in this room, I bet not all of us give blood. I used to for many years. I have a feeling it's been a while since I have. Follow me? What happens if I get in an accident? Need blood. That's a free rider issue. Social contract theory. If we need blood, where are we going to get that blood? How do social contract ethics apply to why we pay taxes? Have you thought about that before? When we pay taxes, you're giving up a part of your paycheck, believing that you're getting something in return. Social contract ethics. That's what taxes are all about. We give up something in taxes, and we expect certain things back as part of that agreement. How can psychological and ethical egoism respond to cases of seemingly selfless people? If a man dives into a dangerous current to be able to save two other people, how does that fit with saying that everyone is selfish and self-centered and egoistic? Follow me? Doesn't seem to fit with that. And finally, Hobbes says, in all times, kings and persons of sovereign authority, because of their independency, so all countries are in continual jealousies and in the state and posture of gladiators, having their weapons pointing and their eyes fixed on one another, that is, their forts, garrisons, and guns upon the frontiers of their kingdoms. And they send continual spies upon their neighbors, which is a posture of war. Are all nations on earth, think about it for a moment, are we in a state of nature?
Yes.
Is it not true that we protect our borders and that we amass all sorts of weapons, that we spy on one another? There's this contract, social contract, that is within each society and that we have between various societies that makes all of this ethical, all of this in ethics extremely complex.
So one of the first things I learned in, I guess, about international relations, which was what I majored in, was that as far as the international stage goes, we are in anarchy. And anarchy is not synonymous with chaos. It just means the absence of government. And then when you think about the powers of the states and the different histories and military power and economic power, there is some order to it. So there is anarchy, but there's order that comes with the power.
At the international level. Okay, so that for instance, let's use an example. What if we as the United States wanted to invade an oil-rich country to have its oil? Would there be anything to stop us? Follow me?